Okay, so task number 4, we're gonna build the backend and run it. And this task number 4 is a little bit trickier than the previous one because we're gonna learn something which is called multi-stage build. So I'm gonna go back to AWS and let's go back to the backend one. So this is the Dockerfile for the backend. And before we start coding, there is something that we need to talk about, which is the bridge network. And I'm not gonna go too deep into the concept because there's a lot that we can talk about. But basically, you have the host network, right? So if you're running, for example, whenever you run a process here, you can just access that process using localhost pretty much. But when it comes to bridge network, so basically Docker creates I guess we can call it like a virtual network in your instance, which has a different IP address, the sort of things. Usually is not accessible outside the instance because, for example, this instance is 10 dot, but the Docker network is usually 172, right? So it's a completely separate thing. So what we need to do here is create a Docker network for the backend. To do that, we do Docker network create and then give the name of the network, so backend. And if I do Docker network list, these are all of the networks that I have. You see some of them already come with Docker. So like, for example, bridge, and then host and none. Yeah, so this is if you want to use a bridge mode, or this is for host. And this is actually the one that comes by default. And if you don't specify any network, that's where Docker is going to run your container. But for this challenge, we're going to create our own network. Okay, so I created the backend. Now let's go back to the Dockerfile in Cloud9 so we can develop it. So first thing is to do a from. Is from. So that's going to be Alpine 3.12. And I'm going to put something here. I'll explain later what that is. Okay, so we're going to start from Alpine 3.12. And then we're just gonna run a command, which is to install Git. So this one doesn't come with Git by default. So we're gonna install Git. And then I'm gonna run a couple of other commands with the same run. And this is actually a very good doc tip. So if you do multiple runs, this is gonna create multiple layers, right? Which means that your image could potentially be a little bit bigger. So if you wanna shrink a little bit your image, you can have a single run instruction, and then that means it's going to be a single layer. When it comes to Docker and layers, it can get a little bit complex, but that's basically what it is. First, we're going to install Git, and then I want to create a folder called /code. So mkdir-p/code. And following that, I'm just going to cd into it. And then I'm going to clone the repo. So the repo is this. So clone this. And I believe that's everything we need. Okay, so we just clone it. And then now we're going to go to the second part. So the second part, there's another from, also Alpine 3.12. And okay, so the first thing we need to do is make sure that NodeJS and NPM are installed. Remember that for the front end, we use the node carbon image, which means a node was already installed. But this one, I want to use a smaller image. So Alpine is usually around like 4 megabytes or something like that. So I'm going to use a smaller image, but that means I need to install Node.js myself, right? So that's basically the difference. So it's up to you if you want to use a specific image or if you want to start from like kind of scratch, let's say, and install everything. So for this, just so we can learn something different, we're going to install Node.js. Command to install is apk add that, and then after this, so this is the tricky part. So now we need to copy the backend that we cloned from the first stage, which is this one here, to the second one. Yeah, and one of the reasons why we usually do multi-stage is, for example, for the first one, I need to clone a repo, which means I need to have Git installed. But think about when you run your application. Do you need Git? Probably not. So you don't need Git to be installed in your system. And that's why we do multi-stage. So the first stage here, we have tools that are necessary to build, do whatever you need to do. But then when it comes to running our application, if we don't need those tools, that means we can do another stage, right? So in this second stage, I'm not going to have Git installed because I don't need Git. But the thing about this is that we cloned in the first stage. That means we need to copy everything over to the second stage. And this is just so you can learn how to copy from stage to stage. So we're going to use the command called copy, which we used before as well. But now the difference is that we need to tell Docker where to get the code from. And the keyword here is from. So there is something which is -- from, lowercase. So -- from. And then the value for the from, it can either be an alias, which is, so for example, here at the top, we've got s git clone. So this means that git clone is an alias for the first stage. So I can either specify from git clone like that, or I can use an index. So the stages, they have indexes, and the first one is 0. So if I do from 0, that means from the first one. Or I can just use the alias like that. So we're gonna copy from the first stage, and when we copy from the first stage, we need to tell where our code is gonna be in. So notice that I created a folder called /code, and inside that /code, I did the clone. Yeah. So that means that the source folder in the first stage is /code / and then the name of the repo, which is all this. And then after that, the second one is a destination folder, which is going to be in the second stage. So I'm just going to call it /code as well. Doesn't really matter what's the name of the folder. And okay, after that, again, remember the work directory. So every time we run the container or we go inside the container, my starting point, I want it to be /code. So that's why I'm going to do work dir /code. And now that we're there, we can run npm install again. We need to make sure that we have everything installed. And then finally, all uppercase, cmd. Let's go back and, so this is the command that we need to run. So npm run server dev. Again, just remember that it cannot be in single quote. We need to split this. So this is the command. This is the first argument. And this is the second argument. Okay, so I believe that's it for the file. So now we can just run, make sure everything is okay. All right. So back here, so back to Cloud9. Need to go to Backend. And I'm just gonna cat Dockerfile. Saved. Yep, everything's there. Let's try to build them. Build -t. And I could just call it --be, and then I retag, but I'm just gonna call it directly with my Docker Hub username. So the Dojo series /dd -be. And remember, you need to specify where the Dockerfile is. So dot. Now let's try to run it. So Docker run, make sure I have everything here. Docker run, and then this. All right, so this is the error that we got, and I believe this is going to be the flag, which is Mongo network error. All right, let's try to submit that. So dev slope, oops, uppercase S, CTF. Okay, let's see. All right, so that was the flag for test number 4.